Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines. It's been 2 months since America and Israel attacked Iran, and despite efforts by Pakistan to broker a peace deal, there still doesn't seem to be a permanent end in sight. Now, as with any war, we're given various justifications by state and media narratives which attempt to justify military action. In this case, those range from regime change and human rights to defending Israel and dismantling Iran's nuclear program.
I think it's important that Iran doesn't lose.
Wow.
I think it's important.
So you want a regime to win that has murdered hundreds of thousands of its own citizens, that denies women freedom, that kills gay people. You want them to win over American Israel. Wow.
To run a repressive government that oppresses many of your own people and to threaten Israel.
The cancer was Iran with a nuclear weapon, and we've cut it out. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The world would be in great danger.
But how much of this is propaganda and fake news, and how much of it is the truth? That's what we'll be exploring in this episode. We'll be speaking to Afzal Ashraf Saab, who is a lecturer at Loughborough University, and he's also an analyst on global security. And also joining us is Javad Moghami, who is an Iranian lawyer. He's also served as a judge in Iran and also as a lecturer at university there. But first, I spoke to lawyer Khalil Yousuf, who is a spokesperson of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and a regular media contributor. We showed him those clips that you've just seen, and I asked him what he thought of the media's coverage of the war.
I think it's horrific. I want to rely on the media, I want to trust it, but the truth is that I can't. And that's because although I expect the mainstream media to be neutral, to convey the facts, to help me understand what's going on, the reality is that it isn't neutral and it doesn't convey the facts. If you look at that clip that we just saw, on the one hand, it suggests that Iran was about to get a nuclear bomb. But on the other hand, we know that the chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, he'd said right at the beginning of the year that Iran didn't have an active nuclear program. And if the objective is to stop Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, the fact that they didn't have an active nuclear weapons program, I think, is a really important fact, which should be highlighted by the media and which the families of soldiers who are being sent into battle probably want to know as well.
And another thing they don't tell us is that there was a fatwa by the former supreme leader of Iran, the supreme leader that they killed, and he had a fatwa banning, the development or the use of any nuclear weapons, and you never told this.
And he did that because from an Islamic perspective, his position was that having a nuclear weapon was completely inconsistent with the Islamic practice that he was elected to lead in Iran. And so you're right, we don't hear much about that. We don't hear much about the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, which was a deal that had been signed not just by the USA, but actually by the 5 permanent UN Security Council members, China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, the US, as I've mentioned, but Germany as well, was designed to stop this nuclear weapons program in Iran. The IAEA was supposed to do inspections, but the USA unilaterally pulled out of an agreement which was actually working. So, I mean, you're right to mention these points, and it's very unfortunate that the information that we get in the mainstream media is not just inconsistent, it's lacking really important detail.
Do you think the media treats the lives of, Iranian people or Muslims equally as, the lives of Western people?
In my view, they don't. And I think most people think that human life is important no matter what the color of the passport of whoever was killed. And we see lots of examples, unfortunately, lots of examples of thousands of civilians that have been killed in Iran and elsewhere, Gaza and other countries, including 165 schoolgirls who were hit by a Tomahawk cruise missile, for which we get very little coverage. And let me tell you a bit about that weapon. It's an old weapon, but it is a precision weapon that is guided by GPS. It's tried and tested, and it's unfortunate that a missile that had caused the loss of life of 165 innocent schoolgirls has not been covered sufficiently by the media. So I think that that is a problem. We want a mainstream media that the public can trust so that the people can make decisions themselves. Isn't that what the freedom and democracy that Western countries that we all want are fighting for? If you don't provide the public with that information, if you make sure that they're given information that is misleading, that actually portrays Iran as being an aggressor and a villain, but not a victim, as we've seen in the case of at least 165 schoolgirls, then all that does is it creates more, not just indecision, but actually an environment in which real decisions are made that take us towards war. So that, for me, is a problem. And I do think that the media have an important responsibility to make sure that they portray the facts and give people the opportunity to make their own decision on those facts.
And finally, we've seen some of the rhetoric coming out of, the US about Iran. They portray Iran and its leaders as barbaric, as evil, and many other really, really harsh, strong language. What kind of effect does that have on public perception of the country and generally, like, in justifying, military action?
Look, it's wrong and it's completely illegal. It's not new either. I mean, language like this, like being used in Iran, was also used in the Rwandan genocide. And those of you who are old enough to remember will know that 800,000 people were killed. And when that genocide was over, the world's highest court on this matter, they actually held a hearing. It was a tribunal, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. And they found that there was a direct correlation between the use of this type of language, the same type of language about calling people animals, barbaric, dogs, etc., that directly led to the genocide, the loss of those 800,000 lives. All this language does is justify hatred and justify war. We can't accept that type of language in a modern, civilized society. We want politicians to be diplomatic, to take us away from war, to bring about peace, to use the power and the resources that they have to ensure that innocent human beings, children like you and I have children. We dress our children up in the morning, we send them to school, we expect them to come home. We don't expect them to lose their life to a precision-guided Tomahawk missile. And I think all of us need to expect much better from our politicians.
Khalil Yousuf, Jazakallah for joining us.
Thank you.
Javad Moghami, I just want to start with you. There's been a lot of kind of narratives and a lot of rhetoric around Iran these days after the attack. I just want to show you something on screen where President Trump described the former supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He said that he was one of the most evil men in history. And we've also seen Iran described as a brutal regime which oppresses its people. It's a danger and a threat to the world. How are you viewing this? And what is your response to these claims, especially as you've lived inside Iran, you're a native Iranian? What's your response to kind of some of this rhetoric?
From the actually opponent perspective, nobody should expect other than that. So that President Trump, as an opponent country who is in war with Iran, so nobody should expect other than that. So he's supposed to describe the opponent like that. However, as you mentioned, as a lawyer, university lecturer, which used to be in Iran, working and back and forth, going and back in here in England, I can't actually, I can't be agree with him. Actually, I disagree. It's a bit exaggeration. And then we can go forward and...
He describes Iran, and the US officials, they describe Iran as brutal. There's no freedom there. Women have no rights. There's another graphic which we'd like to show you where a senator in the US, he actually said that, that women there are treated like dogs. So he actually used the words that women are treated like dogs. What's your response to that? Is that true?
No.
So this is what we're told by Western media.
No, not at all, to be honest, not at all. No, the women are actually living normally, same as other countries around. And then some ladies prefer to have a hijab, and some of them prefer to live like other people around the world. So if you check the Iranian media inside, if you check the social media, you can see people free to choose a hijab or not, or have a moderate hijab. So this actually not good actually picture who has been presented by Mr. Trump or his people.
Yeah, Afzal Ashraf, if I can just turn to you, what do you make of this kind of framing where, you know, the country, the whole entire country is framed as, you know, barbaric, oppressive, and that's used as a justification to attack it? You know, have you seen this kind of rhetoric before in previous conflicts, and what do you make of this?
It's been there, ever present in all the conflicts. It was there in Afghanistan, it was there in Iraq, and it's necessary, particularly for the Western world, to use the language of the greater evil. What that relates to is Western societies, particularly Christian doctrine, where the idea of any kind of violence is considered evil, and the only way it's justified ever since theologians like St. Augustine and Sir Thomas Aquinas is to suggest that what we are doing in response is a lesser evil to a greater evil. So this idea of evil, of people who treat parts of their population badly and so on, all of this is a constructed image which is used for domestic public opinion to support foreign policy objectives which have nothing to do with rights. They're primarily to do with interests. And the interests in the Middle East, but particularly in Iran, historically, the United States' primary interest has been oil. And Iran, unfortunately, is the one country that was central to the Royal Navy, which was the biggest navy at the time, converting from coal to oil. And that's why, from that day onward, Iran became the most central point, because oil was discovered in Iran before it was discovered elsewhere.
I mean, Javad Saab, you know, is it true that most people hate the Iranian government? Is it true that, you know, they are waiting for Americans or, you know, the West to come and save them, to liberate them? Do they need saving? Do they hate the government? I mean, there are protests. We have seen there are protests, but is that true?
Actually, I don't believe so. However, Iran is a very big country. The population is about 90 millions. And then from that 90 millions, 25% living in big cities, capital cities like Tehran, Mashhad, Isfahan, Shiraz, Tabriz, and another 75% living in the rest of the country. So the image which we can see in the social media is just a fracture of some protests or demonstration in the capital cities, which we cannot consider as a whole country. And we cannot consider it as about 90 million population. So it's not actually proper, accurate portrait.
Yeah. And do you want to comment on the graphic that we saw where Donald Trump said that Ali Khamenei, the previous supreme leader, he was the most evil man in history? That's what he said. What do most Iranians, how did they view him? Did they believe that? Or did they see him as a religious leader, as the head of state? How, in their eyes, you know, what was their perspective?
Couldn't be true, because if it was true, it was easy for the first of this war. Everything could get collapsed. Yeah. We can see now it's about nearly 2 months. People start to support the regime, support the government, support their country. And still they're standing, and it shows the resilience. Yeah. So no, I don't believe.
Feel free to jump in anytime.
Well, all I will say is that in addition to the points, the very good points that have been already made, there is a convention, there is etiquette in international law and international relations, and we do not say abusive things about other people. President Trump in particular has no recognition, no appreciation of what we call norms and etiquette. He prides himself in, if you like, putting those aside. And he just wants to denigrate the people he's opposing. And this actually sets a very bad precedent because the power of the United States hasn't been in its military power. It's been in what people believed was its civilizational superiority. And its civilizational superiority is being shown to be wanting by President Trump and other leaders. And this is a great loss to a great nation. And I think President Trump will go down in history as being one of those people that has taken Western civilization down a very slippery slope. And the irony of irony is the Western civilization has always publicly restrained itself from talking about itself as a civilization. President Trump has introduced the word civilization in its defense doctrine. So he's trying to promote Western civilization without the positive values that Western civilization has tried to demonstrate to the world.
And especially this point about, painting the leader of a nation this way. Have we seen this? Have you seen this in previous conflicts?
Well, it's been, I think, historically, the only time I can remember is some of the things that were said by the British leadership about Hitler. But even then, I don't remember leaders like Winston Churchill using anything like the words that President Trump has done. There is no respect at all for human beings. There's no respect for institutions. In fact, President Trump hates all kinds of institutions, whether it's the UN, whether it's the World Health Organization, even World Trade Organization. He doesn't like institutions. So he doesn't respect institutions or people.
Now, most people in America and Britain strongly oppose this war with Iran. More than half of Brits disagree with it, according to this Ipsos survey in March. And you can see in that survey that there's different reasons why people disagree with it. Some are concerned and worried about the cost of energy. Some are worried about the cost to civilian lives. We've been speaking to some members of the British public about their perceptions of Iran and their take on this war. Here's what they told us.
Which country is the greatest threat to world peace today?
Combination of two. Yeah. In Israel and the USA, definitely biggest threats to world peace, I think, right now. Together, they're just a lethal combination.
That's a question. Could be Russia.
Russia.
Well, it's already, plotting, and who knows what they're going to do next.
Because it's vast, and you've got 50% of the population behind Putin. You've got 50% that aren't. I think it's a massive danger.
And you are afraid of what they're arming as a result.
And this war just plays into their hands. Suddenly they've got lots of resources, and very, very easy to see how they could become quite dangerous.
I guess maybe with the whole Ukraine war starting off with that, and then because of the war going on in the Middle East at the moment, I think that Russia's doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
The US? Well, at the moment they've got a blatant clinical narcissist in charge who's kind of flailing and no one's doing anything about it. So yes, I would say he's the greatest threat to world peace at the moment. Also, he's just invaded Iran pretty much unprompted. I understand there are reasons why people feel Iran is a threat because of their nuclear program, but we all have nuclear programs because of that same threat.
The greatest threat to world peace today, I think it is the US that backs genocidal states such as Israel. I think that is the greatest threat to world peace in the modern day.
Yeah, of course, Israel. They're against humanity. All the crime they did, and they are killing children and all the humanity. They are all the crime against humanity.
The behaviour from the US right now is erratic, dangerous, illegal. So yeah, it's them.
And what do you think of the UK's involvement in the Iran war?
It's a difficult question because I think there's a part of us that should help out in a way, because obviously it's getting in the way of fuel prices and it's disrupting world peace. But then also on the flip side, I don't think that we should be fighting with America. I think they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
It's an illegitimate war, so they shouldn't be involved. It's an illegal war.
I mean, it's complicated. I think they feel forced to do it. I think they don't want to upset, a certain madman running America. Yeah, I think there's no reason to get involved, but, people are scared to upset him.
We've got a lot of issues of our own in this country that we need to kind of solve before looking at getting involved with something like that. So it is a very difficult question to answer because I can see both sides.
And how would you describe Iran in one sentence?
Massive, lot of self-belief still. You don't know how dangerous they might be.
It's in a place in the world that is constantly bombarded and is constantly basically at the lower hand because of persistent external involvement in the region. That's what I'd say. And so it's very difficult to really condemn particular iterations of its leadership.
Maybe misunderstood, I guess. Obviously, as you know, depending on what you look at and what your For You page shows you online, it could show you either far right stuff or really lefty, stuff, depending on what you have a look at. So maybe misunderstood, because I'm not going to say that I'm an expert. I don't really know a lot. I just go by what I read and what I see.
Javad, Moghami, just coming back to you, what do you feel that, the West or countries in the West like America or others, they're not understanding about your country or about Iran? What do you think they get wrong about Iran and the Iranian people? Because it seems like they don't have much understanding. For example, they thought that they would kill the supreme leader and all of the Iranians would rise up and there'd be a revolution. But of course that didn't happen. What else are they not understanding about the culture, the people of Iran?
Firstly, I prefer to, instead of actually talking about the West culture or Western culture, Western country, I prefer to actually address as some Western politician. That could be a more accurate words when we want to discuss subject, something like that, some big subject like that. So we cannot actually address like America as a country. We can say, okay, some American politician in a Western country as well. We can say some Western politician, their attitude, their approach is not accurate, is not appropriate as well. That could be more accurate, actually, description of this.
Another thing, Afzal Ashraf, which I just want you to comment on, is that, we've seen this kind of excuse used, or just this justification used to, annihilate entire areas of a country under the excuse of that we're, hitting military sites or we're targeting terrorists. We saw just in Lebanon in just a couple of weeks ago where they killed 300 people in Beirut and other parts of Lebanon. And then they said we were targeting Hezbollah, we were targeting military sites, even though civilians were killed. And just before you comment on that, I just want to show you this clip. This is from 2005. And this is His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the world head and Khalif of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, commenting on this. Let's just take a look at that.
You can fool the world by trying to justify your action that we wiped out such and such a place because all its people were cruel and we had to rain down bombs indiscriminately in such and such place because terrorists were hiding there. If you do this, remember that God is seeing everyone, everything, and even if you can fool a few, God cannot be deceived.
Afzal Saab, what do you make of that, this tactic of...
Well, this tactic is illegal. And what the Israeli government is doing is trying to play games with words, that actually it's a legitimate military tactic because one person in this block was there and we had to kill him, so we've killed hundreds of others. The point is this: illegally it's not acceptable, ethically it's not acceptable, and it's not been acceptable for any Western nation to do this. Here it's been completely eradicated, and it's only Israel that's getting away with it. And actually, the reason it's getting away with it and it doesn't bother is that there's nobody in the world able to hold Israel to account. And this is what the Caliph, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, was saying, was that, okay, there isn't any power in the world that can hold you, but there is a supreme power that will bring you to account. And maybe in the near future, some of us will witness that, because according to those of us who believe in a God, the justice ultimately will be delivered one way or another. But for the rest of us, This behaviour is totally unacceptable, and already in the last couple of years, since it was employed on a very large scale in Gaza, a lot of people who supported Israel have turned against it because it has revealed itself to be a totally unethical and immoral, not amoral, but immoral operator, and that's why a great many people are not supporting it in the United States and in Europe.
Absolutely. And Javad Moghami, I want to give you the final word. What are your hopes for this conflict? There are negotiations taking place. Do you think Iran trusts America to hold good faith negotiations? And just generally, what are your hopes for the end of this conflict?
Actually, in fact, we can see Iranian government and Iranian people, when they can't trust the actually current presidents. They might trust some other president, some other representative of that country, because we can see the current presidents actually constantly change his word and then confuse everybody. So you can't actually trust somebody who can change his word easily and play different actually role and produce different pictures.
And how are most Iranians feeling right now? I'm sure you've got people in Iran that you know and who you've spoken to. How are they feeling about this war? I'm sure they want a quick end to it. What is the general sentiment there?
Yeah, they want quick end to it. However, they don't want to be loser. They don't want to be suppressed or oppressed by foreign armies like that. And the aggressive war and aggression, which is actually clearly illegal and is against international law. So they don't want to actually lose the battle, but they want to be in a reputation side as well.
Perfect. Javad Moghami and Afzal Ashraf, thank you for joining us. That's all that we have time for today. I hope that gave you a broad and more nuanced understanding of the situation in Iran and in the Middle East as a whole. We hope to bring you more such coverage in the future. But for now, thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.